Greetings, Mind Crafters, and welcome to another Mindcraft discussion today. My name is Kimberly Quinn, and I am so thrilled to talk about yet another way to take charge of your brain, right? Because Mindcraft is about I try to accentuate that D because I occasionally people think it's mind with an E craft, which is of course the video game. So Mindcraft is about becoming the boss of your brain, and I'm so excited to have another chat about something, another way to take charge. And today's chat is about sort of understanding the difference between happiness and fulfillment because they are not synonymous at all. So I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek. I just love that guy. I'd love to have lunch with him someday. Uh, yeah, it would just be so cool. Anyway, I've been reading his book, which is it just started, but I've also listened to his YouTubes as similar. It's very or about the same thing about finding your why, and sort of how come that's so important. And so I was just I think what kind of sort of inspired me to kind of do this podcast today was actually an introduction. He was talking about a friend of his who was on a plane and he was so exhausted. I guess he'd done I don't know, a bunch of business trips. He was just like over it. Didn't want to fly anymore. Just wanted to be home. He said the last thing he wanted to do was sit next to yet another stranger making small talk, which he usually likes, but not when you're done. You're not when you're just over it. And so he said, of course, that's what happened. And he ended up sitting with a chatty. And I got the feeling he'd rather stick pins in his toes. He didn't say that. I'm saying that because I think we've all been there. I am super extroverted. I love meeting new people. I actually love meeting strangers. And I think if we're honest, when we're just being human, if we've, in fact, I did a lot of traveling over the last few months. I kind of get when you hit your mark, right? So anyway, the guy's going on and on talking to him about really excitedly talking about selling steel where he'd been for 23 years or something, on and on and on. And Simon's friend is just like in his head saying, "Oh my God, like just kill me." Do you know what I mean? And then he just somehow just kind of flipped the script on it because this guy was excited to talk about pure steel and the place was um the company operated out of Sweden and blah 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 blah. And then he started asking questions about okay, so what? Like, why is this important? We've been talking for, and he might have been a little crispy being tired. I don't know. What? So what? Why is this important? And so after, to make it shorter, a bunch of questions. He looked at him perplexed the first time, didn't really understand. He's kind of stammering around, stuttering. Eventually, what it got down to is it wasn't the steel selling steel for 23 years that he was excited about. What he was excited about was the sustainability piece because apparently this pure steel, um, I don't know all the deets about it, but really helps to conserve the Earth's resources in a gamut of ways. And so this man had children or had children, and I'm sure if he had grandchildren or if would eventually have grandchildren, whatever. But that was his eventual statement about the why was his mission was doing something to do his part in the bigger picture to make the world a better place. And it wasn't about the steel at all. And so I found that very cool. And that's kind of what kind of just inspired me to do this episode today because we've all got one. We've all got one. And I know what my why is, but I've been kind of I've been kind of looking through it to kind of just make sure like fine tune, fine tune, fine tune. We have all got a why, all of us. So you may not know what your why is, but it's absolutely positively there. It is the driving force between it's a driving force that pushes us with high octane passion to do that one thing we were meant to do on this earth. And it can take an archaeological dig to find it sometimes, and sometimes not. It depends by how we feel. And my dear friend Oprah, she's not aware of our friendship, but I love her to pieces. She talks a lot about this, and there's a short YouTube. I'm sure she's done more than that one, but that I've used in my Mindcraft class before because she talks about the difference between the job, the career, and the calling. She talks about that the calling, and I'll just say this: the job is about just external motivation, usually a paycheck. We're not saying paychecks are bad. We need paychecks, but that's usually it with a job. And there's also it's not usually a place for a lot of growth, doesn't mean there can't be, but a job is pretty much means to an end is what I'm saying. Then the career obviously has a little bit more of an investment, educationally, often, going to college, going to graduate school. Also, the many ways education includes training too. So all the vocations, or trades, I guess you might want to say, electrician, plumbing, all the military is often a career choice for people, and it usually involves not just a paycheck, but there's some intrinsic motivation pulling us towards, the military track, or to own our own plumbing business and be have the entrepreneur, kind of twist on going to trade school, working your way up, paying your dues, and then kind of going off on your own, and then all the kinds of various professional careers that can come out of college and then graduate school, or yada yada yada. And so the career has a lot more intrinsic motivation besides, we have the external paycheck, of course, but and then the calling is really what we're talking about now, because the calling most definitely involves knowing your why. And the calling chooses us. We don't choose the calling. It's also important to say that. So, really, we're talking about knowing our why. We're not talking about creating it or choosing it. That isn't how it works. We have our own authentic thing that we're meant to do in this world. It's our path, and it's there already. It's part of us, and we just kind of need to allow it to reveal itself. And it reveals itself, by us listening. We talked about that, slowing down and listening to the inner voice, our inner guidance system, to direct us, because we all have that too, our inner guidance system. It's got the green lights, go this way very clearly, and it's got the red lights, and it's got the caution light too. So you need to listen to that. And of course, we've talked about this in other ways before. We find our why, our genuine, authentic passion by listening to that inner voice. Remember, we're all connected by this divine force, and that divine force is in us, and listening. And then once again, pay attention to how you feel. Migrate towards what makes you authentically feel good. And Oprah talks about it. And I've had talks about this with my kids too. If you have to ask if you're in love, you're not. Like you just know. And even on a less deep level, you just know when you go to buy a house if it's right for you. I knew the house I'm sitting in currently at this minute. I knew just walking in the door, and from the outside looking in, as they say, it didn't seem like it would be a fit for us. I was a real stinker. I didn't even want to bother with it. My husband's like, come on, look, look, look," and I'm like, 3 bedrooms at the time. He had all 5 kids and the two of us, and I'm like, "Oh my god, the girls will kill each other." So, and we were. He said, "Please, just," and I was in the doorway, didn't even see the downstairs, and I knew immediately that this it's just a knowing. It's just a knowing. And that was 2001 to 2023. So I've been in this house for 22 years, and I still love it. So this knowing, just like the falling in love and knowing that the house is right, da 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 da. The knowing, as far as your calling, you just know, and you just feel so in alignment. The universe is, you're just part of it all. It's just this wonderfully exciting feeling of being in alignment. So Simon, quite honestly, says it best when he talks about the two, in his book "Find Your Why." He says fulfillment isn't another word for happiness. All kinds of things make us happy at work: hitting a goal, getting a promotion, landing a new client, completing a project. The list goes on. But happiness is temporary. We know that, right? Happiness is a fleeting emotion. We all enjoy feeling happy, though it isn't as long lasting as fulfillment. So he says, there you go. But happiness is temporary. The feeling just doesn't last. Nobody walks around energized by the memory of a goal hit 12 months ago. I love that. It's originally, when I first read that, I was thinking of more like a sports goal. I wasn't even thinking of work. I was thinking, you had your limelight, your time in the sun, have that rock star moment in high school or college when you know, kick that winning soccer goal. That's what I was thinking. But like 12 years ago or whatever, it's not doing it for you anymore. I think he more meant work goal, but it's really not different. So that intensity leaves with time, obviously. So here's the big difference. Okay, fulfillment is deeper. Fulfillment lasts. This is according to Simon. The difference between happiness and fulfillment is the difference between liking something and loving something. So what this comes down to, if we're not living intrinsically with intrinsic motivation from our passion place, also our power place, because they go together, quite honestly, we're not living. We're just going through the motions and taking up oxygen. And the thing is that if you really want to, sort of feel this incredible passion driven charge for your work, and also that you're contributing to something bigger than yourself. I know that's a huge one for me. The fact is, you've got to know your why. You've got to know your why, and that's just it. That's all there is to it. So, okay, find your passion. Listen to your inner voice, and migrate towards the green lights. Migrate toward how you feel, because we all need to know our why. We absolutely all have one. This is Kimberly Quinn signing off from the beautiful Northern Vermont. Have a mindful, passion-driven day.